Today we are going to be interviewing my grandma about the past. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe because it helps me a whole bunch. I put in videos every single week. Now, let's get to the action. Okay. All right, one more. So, first thing is, were there any remnants of World War II when you were born? Any after effects of it?
Well, I was very young at that time. My father went to the Philippines and was a chaplain in the Philippines. I don't remember where it was, but he went there. We moved to Seattle, Washington, and he went overseas, and we had a good life, really. But I remember living in Seattle, and there were snails crawling up and down the street, the sidewalk. And I picked up a snail once and put it in a jar in front of the little fireplace we had. And it was going to crawl out of the bowl. And I just about went crazy. And I got so angry one day, I threw my doll in the fireplace.
Why?
I don't know.
Just anger.
I just got angry. My mother was expecting my brother at the time, and they must have done something to me that made me angry.
And then you said your birthday was on the day of Pearl Harbor happened, right?
No,
Or your first year?
my first birthday
YouTube?
was, I lived in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Pearl Harbor. I was baptized on Pearl Harbor Day, but I don't recall that. I have a book at home in my dresser. I could look at that and get a lot of dates in that. It's one of the baby book. My mother kept a baby book of me, and I have that in my dresser drawer.
And then, were there any, you were a child then, so, you didn't really know what was going on?
No, I really didn't know what was happening. I know, when my mother just passed away 2 years ago at 98, we were throwing things out, and she and Dad kept everything. And when he was in the Philippines, he wrote letters to every person who had passed away, and he kept those letters, and we have all of those, and my sister has them today. And I think it would be a wonderful book to have written using those letters.
And then, the next biggest thing was in the 50s, you said that, the Russian being afraid that Russia was going to bomb was a big thing, right?
Right. We were worried a lot, and people built those
Bomb shelters?
bomb shelters, and we never did.
Did you have friends who built them and then you, looked inside of them to see what they looked like?
I knew what they looked like, and people showed us. And my father told us, don't fear, because Jesus is our Savior. And if anything happens, it all happens. But don't worry, go every day the way you would
And
if it wasn't there. And you know what was so wonderful when I was a child during that time? We'd all, the neighbor kids and everything, would be outside playing.
yeah.
We'd play in the dark and run around and play hide and go seek and just had a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm. And then the 60s came along, and that's when Martin Luther King and everything. Was there like a lot of segregation where you lived, or not as much because it was in the north? Like, did you have white and black bathrooms?
I don't remember any of those in Chicago. I know when Jesse Jackson and Martin Luther King walked down our block, and it was a block away, and I looked out the window and watched them marching. But I wasn't afraid of anything. Ron, my husband, had a lot of black friends. And we went south side and everything.
So it wasn't a big thing in the north, really. Like, there wasn't a lot of segregation really here.
No.
Did people talk about Martin Luther King a lot? Like, did they think that he was doing good stuff, or do they think it was crazy?
No. They didn't talk about him a lot.
And TVs weren't really a big thing yet?
Well, when I was a senior in high school, we got our first TV, and it was this black and white.
And what year was that?
I graduated in '58.
That was black and white. What were like the TV shows you would watch?
It was cowboy pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And we really couldn't see a lot of them because
It was blurry?
the reception was really poor.
Makes sense. And then, what would have happened after the 60s was JFK getting shot. What was that like?
Oh, when JFK was shot, he was the first president I could vote for.
Did you vote for him?
And no, I was Republican.
Oh, okay.
I was not Democratic. But I remember when he was a president, and we had the problem with Cuba.
Mm-hmm. The Cuban Missile Crisis?
Yes, and we were sitting, a group of us, in the living room watching TV, and what was going to happen. Is a missile going to come toward the United States, or was it not?
So that was like the bomb, like the Russia bombings, but again with
Yeah.
like Cuba. But in a different way. Did people think that JFK was cute?
Oh, I think a lot of people thought he was much better looking than most.
Mm-hmm. And you said that people didn't know about Marilyn Monroe and him?
Not really. We didn't talk about it. We didn't really realize anything was going on
Until later, like when we found out.
until later. And, everything was done in Las Vegas. That was really a hot spot.
Mm-hmm. And then, like, so pop culture, like Elvis Presley, the Beatles, Marilyn Monroe. Do you remember anything specific about any of that from your childhood, or your teenage years, or your 20s?
Well, I know Elvis Presley, he landed at the Chicago Lake Airport, the small airport, and Ron went down, my husband, and took pictures of him and everything. We didn't go to his concert. And all the pictures were stolen from the camera shop. We
'Cause he was
took
a big
them into
deal.
Bill.
Because he was a big deal and people wanted it.
Yep.
Yeah. So then, what would you say was the scariest thing that happened in your entire life that you saw? And then what's the coolest thing? Like with pop culture or politics or anything?
The
Like any inventions or anything?
I thought the most wonderful thing was when we had our astronauts go around.
Oh yeah, when it went to the moon?
When they went around.
Was that a big deal? Was everyone like freaking out?
They weren't freaking out.
But like freaking out, like excited.
Very excited.
Yeah. Did you watch it on TV?
And I watched it on TV when they went just around the globe first. And then I watched when they went to the moon. But we were in Michigan at the time. And they said, well, they're walking on the moon.
Did you think that people were going to start living on the moon or something?
No.
No, you just thought, okay, they did it, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what was like the scariest thing that happened in politics? Or like, was there anything where you were like really like freaked out or no? Like 9/11 or anything?
The political thing, 9/11 was scary.
Yeah.
And then when Russia, we were always afraid of Russia coming over and doing something to us. Always thinking about that.
So then last question is, what do you think is the biggest change from like when you grew up and like when you were younger to now?
The biggest change is, I think, computers.
Yeah.
We didn't have computers when growing up. And then now everyone has a computer.
You don't really use one though, other than your phone, really.
Yeah.
All right, Mamor, thank you for sitting down and chatting with me.
Oh, you're welcome.
I love you.
Love you.